the direction that I think we should go. Nothing about what I'm saying is saying that I don't like it, or necessarily saying that I'm throwing these like negative energy towards whatever you do. Because at the end of the day, the thing that I'm like I stand by is that I'm never going to shoot down anybody's dream.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like I don't want to say something and like it puts a negative taste in their mouth and it puts on the back of their mind like, oh damn, like he said that shit was whack or blah blah blah. It's like no. That's not my narrative. My narrative is I'm not gonna say that shit is whack. I'm gonna say, well, listen, like honestly, let's think about this a little bit deeper. Let's get down to the core of this, where we're trying to go with this, da 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 da, and then based on that information, how do we want to move forward so that we can kind of pivot it to where we need to go?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's easy to criticize and like, nah, that ain't hitting.
It's whack.
But that's like, why give some constructive feedback, some constructive criticism?
Right.
You can't just say, nah, that shit ain't hitting. It's like, yes,
give me something. Give me something I can work with.
Yeah.
You know,
like why isn't it hitting? What's missing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I guess
why is it not responsive? But then also people that's really close to the project, right? And it's not speaking to them because although we're friends, we have like different visions, right? So what I'm saying with my platform might not resonate with what's going on with your situation, right? So from that perspective, you have nothing to contribute to because you're not seeing it from that lens. You're seeing it from the lens of a homie, right? As opposed to like the audience perspective,
right?
So it's like if the only thing like with criticism, it's like, am I not making the homies proud, right? Am I like, you know how the NFL is like conduct detrimental to the team? Like if my shit is detrimental to the team, I'm not representing the squad, then let me know so that, you know what I mean, I'm not jumping out the window on some bullshit.
Yeah, you're right. And it's so funny how like one thing applies to all things. So like I talk about branding and we talk about like personal development and like even with branding and personal development, it even goes into like relationships, right?
Yeah.
So even as you're talking, I'm like processing and kind of advising myself on how I'll approach it. So it comes down to like, for instance, in a relationship, it's about communication. It's not about just communication, but also understanding. So when you think about a relationship, you have intention and you have interpretation, right? I think a lot of times when people say in a relationship, communication is key. It's not necessarily that communication is key. Comprehension is key. You know, you can't have one without the other, right? So for me, it's like I think the element that people forget about is like, yes, there's intention, which is a communication, meaning your actions is communicating something, what you say is communicating something, right? But then you have interpretation. How is what I'm doing or saying being interpreted? Is it being interpreted the way I intended it for it to be interpreted? Or is it being interpreted based on their own dialogue and their own narrative and they put a whole nother story on it? It's like, okay, how do we get those two things in alignment?
Yeah.
Because like when a brand, I say same thing. You have your desired perception and your actual perception, meaning how you desire to be perceived and how you perceive yourself.
Yeah.
And all those two things in alignment. You may perceive yourself as being a luxury brand, but everybody else is kind of like, well, I kind of see you like a Walmart type of thing, bro. Yeah. So it's like, okay, there's a misalignment here. How do we get those things to alignment?
Exactly.
So for me, it's like I'm thinking out loud here. You know, when it comes to criticism, sometimes you gotta think about what was the intention of that criticism? And then with the intention of that criticism, now it's up to you to interpret what is that criticism with malice intent, or is that criticism with the intent of helping you grow?
Exactly.
Now, I think it comes to it's the responsibility of both parties to hold themselves accountable of intention and interpretation. So when someone says, hey, I don't like this, now you got to think, okay, are they saying I don't like this because they're trying to contribute and help, meaning that's their intention to help me grow, or they're trying to be a hater and just say I don't like it just because they just like for no reason, no real reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think interpretation and interpretation and intention is the two things that need to align, and I think people just gotta, as a person who's receiving the information, you have to understand where are they coming from. Are they coming from an energy of hate, or are they coming from an energy of positivity and support? So I think, I mean, naturally with me, I'm always trying to help people win. Of course. Premium only.
Like for instance, it's like whatever, because the fact that we're creating this platform, right? It's a platform where people's voice can be heard.
Correct.
Like we are the what do they call
facilitators.
That? Yeah, we're the facilitators.
Yeah.
We're like the what is that microphone that loud amplified microphone? What do they call that shit?
Well, bullhorn.
Bullhorn, yeah.
Yep.
We're like the bullhorn, right?
Yeah.
So now we have the turn of the bullhorn, so we're talking our shit, yada yada yada.
Yep.
But then we have an audience who has something to say, but
Correct.
we're that channel for them to say that through.
Correct.
So when we're saying some shit that's not in alignment with the audience, they can give that criticism like, nah, or the G check, like, yo, what's
the G check? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the G check?
What's
like,
the G check? Like, yo, this
You know
is
what I'm saying?
this is not what we elected you to say.
And
like,
honestly, that's what gets me hyped. And that's, now we're talking about personality types.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very competitive. So when, like, I'm the type of person, you're not gonna talk shit to me and I don't react.
Yeah.
Right. So my reaction is usually like, I'll show you type of energy. So I tell people all the time, like, I can do a lot more with criticism than I can with compliment. So you know what I'm saying? So with a compliment, it's like, okay, like, I'm the best. So like, what do I go down? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I do with that? You know? But when somebody start talking shit like, yo, man, your joint is whack, da 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 da, even if it is in malice intent, I can take that and I can use that.
Yeah.
I can use that information. I'm like, okay, you know, this is a hater, obviously,
yeah.
but all right,
Yeah.
How can I, you know, we come up, like, if you're a Leo, you celebrate Petty Fridays. So every Friday or every
I don't
Thursday,
even know
whatever,
Petty Fridays was-
whatever. So Petty Fridays is like, yo, okay, how can I make them hate more? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's fuel to my fire. But at the same time, also, if we're talking more on a serious tip, it's like, okay, you can do a lot more with criticism than you can with the compliment. So with the criticism, you're like, okay, obviously there may or may not, but it's worth looking into a weakness in the system or weakness in the brand, weakness in your personality, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Can I improve it? And can you improve it? And is it worth improving? Is it worth the time and effort? Is it small enough or big enough for you to address? Right? So I think as I'm thinking about this and we talk about the topic of how to properly receive criticism and also how to properly give criticism, I think it's about people understanding what's your intent of the criticism and you interpreting that criticism in a positive or negative light and make sure those two things in alignment.
And then sometimes it's like it's like the chink in the armor, right? It's like that's we go through building the foundation a lot, and there's always going to be shots taken at that foundation to see how solid it is.
But what's funny,
you know,
even like we talking about like the solid, right?
Yeah.
This how solid is your foundation. What we're talking about is self-esteem. How firm is your self-identity? Kind of like we're going to the beginning of the podcast, like the first two podcasts, we're talking about self-awareness and how strong is your core value system. You know, your self-awareness and knowing, okay, no matter what people throw at it, I'm going to stand firm on what I believe, but I'm also going to be fluid enough to be able to go with the flow and withstand the wind. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really, really important thing. Now it's like, now within that, can you be strong enough and confident enough to know and not allow someone to blow you over?
Yeah.
But in the day, you still absorb the wins. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a big piece. Like, how secure are you in your identity? Because if people take offense if someone takes offense to criticism, it says a lot about their self-esteem. Right? And now, question is, how do you build your self-esteem? And honestly, I think there's no easy way to get around it other than to attack what makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So now it's like,
there's no skipping steps. Like
there's no.
Yo, Nipsey. I put a video of Nipsey up on the channel like a few videos ago, and basically it was like, yo, there's no skipping steps. You like literally, you're going to get a shot taken at you. Like, inevitable. It might be a backhand, it might be like up in your face, it might be intentional, it might not be intentional, but there's always going to be a shot taken at you. Like, I've been on this content journey for God knows how long now. I'll stop counting because I don't want to like focus on those.
Yeah.
But you're going to hit roadblocks, you're going to get burnt out. The burnt out is part of those steps. So you are, no matter how you try to navigate this burnout, the burnout is going to happen.
Here's a reality that I know everybody's going to run into if they take your advice.
Yeah.
You like, yo, this shit about to be a banger. Like, this is about to be the hottest thing I ever created, blah, blah, blah. and you put it out, it is a dud.
Crickets.
10 people
Yeah.
will look at it. No one comments on it. No one hits like.
Yo,
like,
this journey built me an unshakable level of self-esteem.
Yeah.
Like, it humbles you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It basically, you wake up every morning and you have to face yourself every single day.
Yep.
Right? And I'm just so happy to play this game because I have reinvented myself, basically. You know, I stepped out of the shadows and I had to look at myself and like, yo, C's, this is what you really want. Every night, as I meditate, I'm like, yo, what is it that you really want? And the answer is always the same. And then I'm like, all right, how am I going to execute on that? And then I stopped looking for that external validation. Mm-hmm. Like, all that validations come from internal. I'm like, yo, did you do everything that you could today?
Yeah,
you know
and with all that being said, though, like you talking about, like it built a level of security, and you can't skip steps, and you, like I just said, you gotta attack what scares you most, right? Or attack what makes you feel most uncomfortable. You know, sharing this, like something about me. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a very private person, right? And we talk about relationships and things like that. And I had a discussion with my girlfriend about it, and you know, I told her like, yo, I don't post on social media about my personal life because I like to keep that private. Like, I like to keep things, I don't feel like everyone needs to know what I have going on at all times.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, she was going to be kind of going back and forth about it. And I said, you know what? Let me be honest with you. I'm a little insecure. Let's be honest. Like, I'm a little insecure, meaning I'm a Leo and I wear my heart on my sleeve. And I know that I'm naturally very sensitive. So because I'm very sensitive, I navigate in a way to protect my feelings in the best way possible.
Yeah.
So if I put something out there, it actually does bother me. I actually do care what people think. It does bother me when people start to send judgment or have criticism or send a level of hate based on what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So best way to alleviate that mental barrier, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I don't put things out there to protect my feelings, so I can maintain my level of clarity and my thought process and my clarity and my vision. Yeah. So I continue doing what I need to do to build whatever it is that I'm trying to build. Right. Mm-hmm. So I said, so to me, it's a way of me avoiding that distraction. Now on the flip side of it, but what does it look like for me to be a little bit more open, which is like the content production you're talking about? Post my videos. Post when I feel down or frustrated. Post some of my vulnerabilities when it comes to where I'm uncomfortable and where I'm unsure and all those type of things. Mm-hmm. That's something worth attacking for me.
Yeah,
I haven't done it yet, but it's something that's worth attacking, and I know that because it makes me uncomfortable, and that really influences why I don't post content. And I'm only sharing that because I know there's people who are watching this is that, oh, I don't do the social media thing. I don't do Facebook and Instagram Live. I don't do this and I don't do that when it comes to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter and all these other social media platforms. But what's the real reason why you don't?
Exactly.
I will bet that a lot of it has to do with our own insecurities.
Exactly.
And not being willing to allow people to throw criticism, because, social media is a jungle.
It is, yo.
Like, it's a jungle. Like, they are not. Like, people are mean, but also people are hilarious at the same time. But
Twitter is another.
Like,
animal.
no one's safe out there.
No one.
You can post you be on vacation, minding your business, and become a meme. Like, no one's safe.
No one's
safe. So it's
dog.
like, because
I think growing up in the concrete jungles of Brooklyn kind of prepped me for this shit. So
but even like, the way I look at it is, and I think, and that's why I people like criticize social media, but I also think that social media is the best thing ever created. It's so entertaining. I'm like this all day because it's so like, entertaining. Like, it's funny. Yeah. The way I look at it is kind of like, I don't know if you ride the bus when you're younger.
Yeah.
Like, or whether you rode the bus or when you're in the cafeteria, there were just certain things that just were funny because you had those certain people who just had that personality that was funny. Mm-hmm. Like, they were the comedians, the class clowns, or just doing dumb stuff. I would never do that, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think social media has taken those things from within those four walls of those school or within that school bus
the
and
morning,
put it into
the morning lunch table. like playing Uno, talking
it
shit.
took all that and made it and put it onto the public stage. So now it's just like not your 10 friends that know about it. Everybody knows about it. And I think there's beauty in that. So like when you're on the bus, it's like if you don't want to get joked on, you better sit in the front of the bus. Because if not, but at the same time, through that process, you also learn that in order for me to survive back here, I gotta have some jokes of my own. Or you better have some ammo for yourself to make sure you protect yourself.
It comes with time under tension, man. Back to the fitness thing. It takes time.
What's funny is like it takes you getting joned on or roasted that 1 or 2 good times, and it's you either bend or you break. And I think some people are like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna face this, and that's not gonna be me again. Other people are saying, oh, he bullied me, and I'm gonna cry and sulk about it. And I think the world has gone softer that you really can't say what you need to say. You want to say and take it. Everything is people take jokes as serious.
2008, 2010, 2012 Twitter.
Listen, you said 2012?
I think it's 2010. Between 2010 and 2000, I would say 14. It was like the Wild Wild West.
Actually, you're right, man. Because 2000,
that 4-year window.
Because I was in college from 2009 to 2013. Yep, so 2009, 2010. I said from 2009 to 2010, 2011. That's when it peaked. Like it got so bad where on campus, cause I was a fraternity Kappa Alpha Psi, and we had like town hall meetings with all the Greek organizations, and our fraternity started getting in trouble because they were saying we were too ruthless on Twitter when it came to like bashing the other or calling other organizations out, and just like they got too reckless, and it's like they started putting rules like, hey, this is the Kappa Alpha Psi rule, y'all can't do that. Like, nah, we're gonna shut that down. But at the same time, it was hilarious. But people started getting sensitive, and I respect it, like cyberbullying is a real thing. I do agree with I do believe in that. But at the same time, it's like you gotta understand, like we just talked about intention versus interpretation. If you know that the intention is more of a joke, yes, jokes can hurt people's feelings, but if you know it's a joke and it wasn't like, hey, I'm going for your soul, let's hee ha self-deprecating humor. But if you notice someone come at you, I'm coming at you with malice intent, I'm trying to take you down, then it's like, okay, you know what? Let's calm that down. That's disrespectful.
And like us being in media, right? It's like we are curators now. You know what I'm saying? We stepping out of the seats in the audience, watching this all go on, and then now we're on the stage. You know what I mean? And we're curating, the audience experience and everything. So now it's like we have that responsibility to show off that same thing. So
with that being said, I don't want to pose this question and maybe just lead into a whole nother rabbit hole, but we talk about at the core of when I talk about interpretation and intention, right? And we talk about Twitter, we talk about social media and esteem. What are we really talking about? What is the common theme from all those different things? What we're talking about is like emotions, right? We're emotional creatures, and I'm not here to invalidate someone's feelings because our feelings are true. Our feelings are pretty honest.
No matter how rational or irrational
they are, you still have the right to feel the way that you feel, right? But now feelings are also up to us to understand ourselves and have the self-awareness. So now we're talking about emotional intelligence and our own self-awareness. So how do you feel about the whole thing about the emotional piece and this? Because to me, I've kind of gotten to the point where I feel it's like masculinity is almost frowned upon now. Where like I know there's the stigma of men. Hold your ground, don't show emotions, straight face, hard, the baddest of the bad.
What they call it now? Alpha male, beta male? Or what's the other
I don't know about that. But I think it's also, so I guess where I'm getting at is like, what are your thoughts on this whole emotional world that we're in, and how do we as men navigate that?
Yeah, so it's like like finding your direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you want to go as an individual, right? So if you don't know where you're going, you'll just get lost out there.
Yep.
And what's that saying? An idle mind is a devil's playground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yo, if you don't know who you are, what sort of value you have to offer, then you have to search for that. Because if you don't know, you'll just go into the jungle and just get eaten and spit out. So know exactly where you want to go, man. And I have an idea of where I want to go, and I'm just taking the necessary steps to get there.
So what you're saying is the best way to combat the emotional aspect of the world now is deep rooted in our own foundations.
Yeah, you have to know what your values are. You got to know who you are. So like, even if it's a lifelong journey, basically it is a lifelong journey on trying to discover who you are.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
You're gonna learn who you are up until your deathbed.
Yeah, facts. Exactly. And you're constantly asking yourself these questions like, who am I and what is it that I want? All right.
Why do I feel the way that I feel?
Exactly.
Why did I do what I just did?
Why am I mindlessly scrolling through the gram? Why did I retweet this? Why did I say this? Why am I doing this? Just figure out like. So if you don't basically you want to know where you're going or where do you aspire to go to, and basically everything, all the actions that you take, you want to have intention, right? But free from that outcome, right? Be clear in your intent. This is exactly where I want to go. Be as clear as you can. I want to go there, right? But then you're on the path, and that's the only right that you have. You have the right to the journey. You don't have the right to the destination, right? So you just
have the right to the journey, but you don't have the right to destination.
No,
I like that.
Yeah, so you just once you if you get there, that's fine and dandy, right? But if you don't, then it's like, hey, I was able to play, and you got to be happy with that.
Okay, so. I get it. I get where you're going with that, and I think when it comes to this whole emotional thing, I think you're right. It comes down to our own our core value sets, our core understanding, and based on our core understanding, it informs what we see in the world.
Yep.
That includes how we receive information. Whether it's through sight, or how we hear it, right? So that's really what it defines how we see things and how we hear things, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the challenge though is that we're in a world now where we're in an identity crisis. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that's worth talking about. And I think it's something that was worth addressing that no one has really talked about, because everyone's talking about emotional intelligence. Everybody's talking about the environmental stuff. We're talking about economic crisis and, how kids don't do certain things and the mass shootings and the racial inequalities and all this. When it comes down to it, it comes down to the identity crisis. It comes down to our lack of understanding of self, our inability to cope. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Our inability to sympathize or empathize with people who are different from us. So at the end of the day, it's through that identity crisis, meaning a lot of people don't have those foundational elements within them. A lot of people don't have those things. So what happens when you don't know yourself? You react. Yeah. When you know yourself, you make decisions. So what's happening is, especially when it comes to young kids with the social media and you're inundated with information, it's boom, boom, boom. It's nonstop. Yep. And when you only have a time to slow down long enough to interpret and say, okay, this is happening. Who am I? What matters to me? And now, because of that, those understandings serves as a filter. Yep. So it's not like you have this imagine a pipe and there's water coming in. It's not like you have this gush. Right now we have a gushing of water just going through this pipe. Mm-hmm. But what happens when you insert a faucet? Yep. You say, I want to turn it hot. I want to turn it cold. I want to turn it up. I want to turn it down. How much water you want to flow at a certain moment. Right now, we don't have that faucet, meaning we don't have that control mechanism within ourselves to say, let me filter out the important information and the information that's not important to me. Mm-hmm. Let me filter out the things that make me feel good and filter the things that make me feel good and filter out the things that don't make me feel good. And I think because of that, we hit this point of, hey, people are very emotional. people are emotional because they're reacting a lot to a lot of different things. But if they're able to slow down and say, okay, who am I? Why do I do this? Why did I feel that way? And have a firm understanding of self. What are my boundaries?
Yo, and the crazy thing is, right? It's like we have all these thoughts because we have nowhere to put them, right? Mm-hmm. And this is why I always advocate, one, have a journal, because then you can get all the noise out there on paper.
Correct.
And then you can read it and see, like, man, this is either rational or irrational, right? And that's when you'll be able to understand. So basically, you're writing all the novels that's stuck in your head.
That's a good idea.
And you put it on paper. Now you can read it to yourself and see that picture clearer. All right?
I like that idea.
And that's the action. You take that's an act of itself, basically. People on social media, us using this as a medium, is just communication. We're getting all the noise that's out here, that's in here, and we're putting it out there. So now we're cleansing ourselves of those thoughts.
I think it's twofold. One, you said it's a cleansing mechanism. It allows us to let out. And that's why art is so important, because it's an outward expression of our internal feelings, or it's an internal interpretation of the external world. Mm-hmm. I can go deep in that. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of poetic. But when it comes to that, it's the way I look at it, it's like, when you're in the forest, all you can see is the trees. It's hard to see the forest when you're in the forest, right? Mm-hmm. So when you write, it cleanses you, but it also gives you a 10,000 foot view of the scenario or situation. It allows you to be objective. It allows you to be objective of what's going on, right? So it allows you to be objective of what's happening. So now, by you writing it down, it allows you to take yourself out of the scenario and say, is this rational or is this irrational? And what do I do to make this right? Or is it something worth addressing or continuing on down that thought, right? Mm-hmm. So when you write it down, you're cleansing yourself, but you're also allowing yourself space to now not be in the forest, be outside of the scenario and say, okay, what's the best way to move forward on this? You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting. Like I said, we can go on and on about this shit.
Our podcast guest just came in.
I think that was a great conversation. Yeah. We hit on some major things.
That's exactly why I turned on the camera.
What did we talk about? We talked about emotional intelligence. We talked about the level of self-awareness. We talked about criticism, how to receive criticism and give criticism. And what was the other thing we talked about? Was those the main three things we talked about?
Yeah, those are.
Yeah, pretty much just about criticism, and then we talked about the nature of social media and how the dynamics of those things changed, and how we use it, and how people will receive the information, that sort of thing. I think we touched on a lot. I think it's a great conversation. Hopefully, I'm not gonna say hope. We will continue these discussions. Hopefully, this stuff is valuable. Maybe if you got something to say, add some comments.
Yeah.
Hit a DMs. Hit a like. Just let us know. Let's talk about it. Maybe look. If you got something to say, maybe you can hit us up and we can include you in the conversation.
Yeah, we get you in a conversation, all right? So holla back. See you on the next.
There we go. Out.